Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the webinar. And we have a really important topic for you today, and it's using the data to really understand your partner community. And we've got four great panelists for you today, and I'm going to introduce them in a moment, but this is very, very much your webinar. So please feel free to ask questions of the panelists, and there are two ways to do that. You can ask questions live via the microphone, so just click the button on your control panel. You can virtually raise your hand. We can then unmute you, and you can ask the questions live. Alternately, you have a questions module on the control panel. Feel free to type in your question into the module. We'll pick up on those questions, and I will ask the panelists their views on the questions you submit. So let me now quickly introduce our panelists. And our first panelist is Steve Kellam, and Steve is the SVP of Marketing and Alliances at 360 Insights. He's spent over 20 years in the channel. He ran and sold a successful MSP and a channel incentives company. He's managing a successful channel podcast series at 360. And Steve is a pretty fit guy. He's a triathlete, surfer, and as he says, a general health nut. So Steve, just tell us briefly about 360.
Sure, thanks, Rod. 360 is a global incentive company, and we really focus broadly on incentives and the software and the services and the data analytics that go along with them. And we focus on the B2B and the B2C market as well. So we really cover all of those.
Fabulous. And our second speaker is Laz Gonzalez, and he's the Chief Strategy Officer at Zift. And many of you will know Laz. He's a prominent industry analyst and thought leader. He brings unparalleled channel expertise to the team, having served as a strategic advisor to many leading B2B channel programs worldwide. And before Zift, Laz was Group Director of Channel Sales and Marketing Strategies at Sirius Decisions, where he was responsible for extensive channel research. And Laz gained extensive experience with OEMs, strategic alliances, distributors, and resellers. So Laz has taken just about every position in the channel over 2 decades. So Laz, tell us a little bit about Zift.
Rod, every time you do that, you make me feel old. I'm telling you. I just want to first thank all.
You started age 13, Laz. Don't worry.
I want to thank the rest of the folks on this call. I'm honored to be joined in this company by such thought leaders in the channel. And at Zift, we're on a mission to build a platform that can align sales, marketing, operations, so that they could get better results. And we recognize that partner experience is really important to driving engagement. And today's topic around data is something that we feel can only be done when you have this kind of end-to-end platform. So we're trying our best, Rod.
Excellent. And our third panelist is Chanan Greenberg. And Chanan is the SVP and General Manager at Model N. They're focused on helping companies maximize profitable revenue and channel engagement. He's been the SVP and GM for Model N for 15 years, and he's worked with over 100 companies on pricing and channel incentives. Before Model N, he was CEO and founder of Privia, which was focused on the government contracting space, servicing little companies like Boeing, Lockheed, and Raytheon. He's also was CEO and chairman of Click Online, which was focused on online and multimedia product development. So Chanan, tell us just a little bit about Model N.
Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be here and an honor to be with this distinguished panel. I've worked with Model N now for 15 years, as Rod said, and Model N is a 20-year-old company based in Silicon Valley, providing software solutions to help companies maximize and optimize their revenue through the channels We provide a range of solutions, including everything from quoting and pricing to the channel, through to managing the SPA debits, credit claims, rebates, MDFs, and channel data management solutions. So, as I said, pleasure to be here. Looking forward to the discussion.
Fabulous. And our fourth panelist is Sal Patalano. And Sal is Chief Revenue Officer at Mind Matrix. Sal's a serial entrepreneur. He's founded a number of IT companies during his career. He was an IBM business partner for over 15 years, and he spent the last 13 years in various Fortune 500 executive channel roles, and the companies he's worked for include IBM, CA, and Lenovo. He's listed as one of the top 100 most influential people in the channel, and is a well-known public speaker, but also well known for putting a fairly interesting and provocative twist to some of the things that he says. So Sal, tell us very briefly about Mind Matrix.
Thanks, Rod. I guess that classifies me as a troublemaker. Again, nice to be with this group, to be with friends, old friends. So Rod, Mind Matrix is focused in the PRM space, partner relationship management. And we effectively have brought three components of PRM together with automated channel marketing, with sales enablement, and of course with channel operations. So the company focuses on a single platform to deliver these solutions, both to MSPs and to enterprise accounts. So we actually play in both spaces, one of the few vendors to do that, which gives us a very unique perspective on what MSPs and partners are doing. And then we bring that over to our enterprise and large vendor accounts to provide additional insight when they're deploying. The company's been around a little over 20 years. We are based out of Pittsburgh, and recently we have soft announced, if you will, our Set the Bar campaign, which we think is going to have a dramatic impact on industry pricing and on adoption of all the PRM solutions that companies are putting in place. And we can provide more information on that if anyone is interested in learning more a little later. But again, really a lot of fun to be with you guys again. I wish I could see everyone in person.
Fabulous. So let's level set. We're going to be talking very much about data and using the data to really understand your partner community. So let's find out where we all are. So I'd like to start with a poll. And the question is, based on the data we produce, I would rate my understanding of our channel community as either excellent, you've got all the information you need, pretty good on the large partners, but not for tiers 2 and below. We have some information, but not enough. We have too little information. And data, what data? So if everyone could complete the poll, we've got about 38% of people have voted so far. Keep those votes coming in. We've now got about 65% of the people on the call have voted. So we're going to hold the poll open for just a little bit longer. Keep those votes coming in. Cool, 75% of you have voted. So we're going to hold it open for about another 10 seconds. So one last chance to get those votes in. Last chance. Okay. Reveal the results of the poll. So 7% of us think it's excellent. We have all the information we need. 32% think it's pretty good for the larger partners, but not good for tiers 2 and below. 49% have some information, but definitely not enough. 7% have too little information, and 5% data, what data? So Chanan, wonder if I can bring you in to comment on this.
It's refreshing to see the awareness of people to the issue, because these results are telling me that a good portion, about 70 plus percent, actually 80%, are in a point where they realize that at the very least they have gaps or potentially large gaps into the data to understand their channels and understand the end customers through the channels. And the reason I say it's refreshing is because in our experience, as much as 80% of companies in the tech space specifically are still using homegrown tools to try and collect the data and enrich the data or correct the data with a group of people sitting in a low-cost location doing fancy macros in Excel to try and improve that data. And it's 20% or less of the market that has actually looked into enterprise-grade solutions that can actually deliver consistency and quality, resolving second-tier issues, completeness of information to provide these insights. So it is good, at least with this group of people on the webinar today, that the awareness to the problem is there.
Excellent. And Sal, wonder if you'd like to comment on this one.
Sure. I mean, I think Chanan makes a good point. You know, we're looking at 80+% that are at least paying attention to this and whatnot. The one thing I would add is this, and obviously Mind Matrix and Zift, we're both in this space. You know, one of the things we're finding is that the solutions that vendors are putting in place, whether it's a homegrown PRM system to manage their channel, or they're going, you know, with Zift or Mind Matrix or one of the other players, one of the beauties of that is really the ability to capture lots of this information, because now the partners are working through your platform, a SaaS solution. You're able to capture significant volumes of data and provide that back to the partners to really help them, actually back to the vendors, pardon me, to really help them enable their business and focus their revenue and resource spend really where it needs to be. So to me, I think that this is indicative of the fact that over the last 2 to 3 years, we're seeing more and more vendors moving into systems and solutions that will help them manage their partner community more effectively. So I applaud this, and I think if we take this poll again in a year, Rod, I think you're going to see these numbers slide up into the red and the green areas. This is very encouraging to me.
Fabulous. And before we move on to the general questions, we've got another poll. So in this one, you'll be able to answer multiple questions. So my biggest challenges in creating meaningful data are: I don't have access to the data we possess. The data is siloed and therefore difficult to pull together. We don't have access to a data expert to make this happen. My partners don't supply the data we need to do this, and we don't have the C-level sponsorship we need to do this. So on this one, you can click multiple answers, as many as you wish, and I can see everyone voting at the moment. That's very cool. Got about 50% of the people on the call have voted so far, so keep those votes coming in. Now up to about 75%, so we're going to keep the poll open for another 10 or 15 seconds, but do please take that opportunity, the last few of you that haven't voted, to vote. So closing the poll in just a few seconds time. So Caleb, if you'd like to show the answers. And so here we have our single biggest issue is the data is siloed and therefore difficult to pull together, followed by my partners don't supply the data we need to do this, and I don't have access to all the data we possess. So Steve, I wonder if I can bring you in to comment on this one.
Yeah, it's funny. As we were going through this, we're all talking ahead of time, not about the political side. We had that conversation. We could share that with everyone later on, but about actually talking about data. Look, the silos is probably the biggest thing. And I think it's in a couple of areas. But we look at it, if you're looking at incentives, and we're talking about co-op and MDF and SPIP and rebates, deal registration, you know, we've been saying, this group has been saying single pane of glass for how many years, guys? 7 years. And talking about a single pane of glass for a partner to be able to see all their incentives in a single place, progress against goal. And then for the vendors to be able to see all that data in one place across all their incentives. I think that's step one. And step two is then how do they tie it to the ecosystem? And we started drawing maps. Oh my gosh, I'd go on a sales call 5 years ago to talk about MDF, and we draw a big circle on a whiteboard and we talk about how all plugged in from PRM to all the funds and incentives, fund management, and then into TCMA in the marketing, and how once you get all the information around incentives, it then needs to connect to the rest of the world and all the other pieces that are out there.
Excellent. And Laz, any thoughts?
Well, I would agree with Steve. There's more data out there, but it's becoming harder and harder to access. By the time you're done wiring all the different parts that you just heard him describe, you've created a Frankenstein monster, right? And so you got to avoid that. And I think that companies are starting to realize that, you know, there's an effort behind consolidating the data, making sure that there's visibility into the different silos. I think it's a huge problem, but hopefully there's some solutions out there that companies could begin to look at.
Hey, can I add one more piece to that too, real quickly, Rod? And I know we want to move quickly to this. And I think once people are getting that data, I know we as a group have had extensive conversations about, do people have a data scientist? And if they don't have a data scientist, do they at least have a marketing data analyst? I think somebody even here quoted, if you don't have a data scientist, you need to make one. But I think, you know, even once you get all that data in place, what do you do with it? I got to tell you, we were talking to $1 billion company, and we had to explain to them how they work their BI tool. I mean, to me, that's just crazy.
Fabulous. Okay, so let's level set right at the start of the presentation. And Chanan, if I can start with you, there are numerous potential data sources out there. What do you think are the most important ones, and what are some of the unusual ones that are really going to help you give insights into your partner community?
Well, I think that's a very good question, and kind of tying to what Steve said earlier. It's not just, you know, one type of data set. We really are looking at multiple data points when we're talking about channel data. Pricing and the pricing you give your channels and the deals they're able to close at those prices is a data point. The deal registrations is channel data. The marketing campaigns you do through the channels, that's another, you know, piece of data. There is obviously the incentive programs. There is the inventory. There is the point of sale. And all of these are all different data sets. However, they, in a sense, all fall under the umbrella of quote unquote channel data. And because they, in many cases, are managed by different tools, sometimes even different departments inside a company, you almost inherently have these silos. Certain elements are viewed by the sales operations people because they own the deal desk function or the, you know, the quote center, if you will. And you have a different team of people in channel operations or in finance who are looking at, I don't know, the incentives or the point of sale data. So we almost by default in many companies build the silos and the processes in these silos and the tools inside these silos that make it difficult for us to bring these data points together. And Model N is definitely on a mission to try and break down these silos. You know, I won't mention the company name, but right now we're in the process of working with a $20 billion company in the storage space. And in that company, we're looking at a smorgasbord of 3 different large entities that came together into a single company, and across them they had 10 different systems for rebating, for pricing, for channel data management, and it was impossible for the company to actually get a single view, which is what they're now, you know, trying to do, or what we're trying to help them achieve. So so I really think that the silos, and I'm not surprised it came up as the #1 point in the survey, is really a critical point. And I'll add to that one other thing to plant into people's mind, looking specifically at the POS piece of the data, the point of sale information. That's a treasure trove of information to understand so much about the channel, because it's not only telling you what products are they selling, at what prices are they selling them to which end customers, and hence which end markets they're more successful at. It's also telling you trends about the end customers, about their preference of which channels they choose to engage with when you aggregate the data. And when you flip that information backwards, you take the POS and you start looking into, well, what did I do in marketing that influenced this? What did I do in incentives to influence this? If you are able to create these correlations, and again, back to Steve's comment about knowing how to do the BI right, knowing how to have the data scientist to help you do those correlations, that's when you start really generating the insights into what's going on in your partners. So.
Okay, I'm starting to get questions coming through, which is great. So keep those questions coming in. Laz, I'll fire this one at you, and that is, can you give some specific examples of ways you can break down the silos?
Well, I think that the first thing is to think about where the data, what the system of record is in any program. And typically, you'll find the sales history that Chanan talks about is really where you store most of that information. But there is another world of data out there which revolves around the partner. And it's that 360 view of the partner and then that information. The problem is typically those things are kept at both ends of the spectrum. And where you start breaking these things down is by starting to think about the linking points between the sales data, the learning data, the marketing data, so that by the time you're looking for that ROI, you're not backtracking and looking for clues like some Sherlock Holmes trying to find out what caused the results. So we're finding companies starting to invest more in in ways of connecting these broken silos. And the obvious point is integration, trying to find, everybody integrates to something like Salesforce, incentives, they have to integrate. But what happens is that, they hardwire these things. And by the time the partner sees it, it looks really clunky. And so I think the one thing that you can't miss as you break down these silos is the partner experience, right? Does it feel natural for them to move in that direction, to submit that information, to then act on it, right? And I really think that that's something that people focus on after the fact, and then they have to go back and fix it because they realize, hey, we got all the data in one place, but nobody knows how to use it. And that's why, they'll fall for, having to have a specialist on board to help them do it. But at the end of the day, partners will join programs that are easy to do business with. And so data is one of those examples where you can make it really easy or you can make it really hard. And I think if you focus on experience first and then think about what follows after that, I think it's a much more sane course than, trying to deal with it afterwards.
Hey, can I throw a quick, oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
Steve, no, please, Steve, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, look, just one concrete thing that I run into, and I'm curious if you run into this all the time, is look, you've got to have your IT department involved in this. C-suite driving it down, IT involvement. I can't tell you how many times I've gone into a situation where they've actually planned it out, right? They want to do this, and they're talking about everything Laz, Chanan, Sal, you're talking about, and then the IT has a window, right? And then IT gets pulled off, and all the ROI metrics and all the justification for everything they did for an integration and the whole reason they did what you were talking about, Laz, is out the door. It's a year later and they have to go back and justify it again.
No patience for it. There's no patience for a long-winded data integration before a partner can get productive.
Yeah, and look, I just recommend pulling them way ahead and holding feet to the fire. I know that sounds easy, but you can't do it without that integration and the commitment from that IT resources. And we got to help people understand how to justify that and budget for that at the C-suite level to talk about why it is so important to making it all happen. Sorry, I just run into that all the time.
So Steve, Rob, let me just throw in something because I think this is a very important topic for the listeners, and I want us to be able to offer, the point of this is to offer some suggestions. So Steve hit on something, Laz. So Laz, I think, has shown us the complexity of all of this. So did Chanan, right? It's just, if you're at a large company, and I've been at IBM and Lenovo, this is a massive undertaking, right? What I've done, and I've had moderate success with this, it's dangerous, but I've had some success with it, is I've gone into organizations and I've created stress points and pain points for the various stakeholders, right? What's the best way to motivate a department? Create a pain point for them, and if it's already there, manifest it, whether it's IT, whether it's accounting, whether it's billing, whether it's sales, marketing. So I found, and we just did this, we just signed a very large contract with a very large telco, and one of the things we did to motivate this to move through is to basically illustrate to them and put some pressure on them as to where the pain points were. And suddenly these stakeholders bubbled up to the surface and said, holy cow, this is hurting me more than I realized it was. So we've driven it by actually going in and being, kind of the kid in the schoolyard that says, hey, did you hear what he said about you? And, kind of pushing him into the other kid, right? Causing a bit of a fight. And the second, and I know that sounds kind of unusual, but it's worked. The second thing I wanted to say, you talked about a measure, Rod, what to look at. I think Chanan nailed it, but again, at a large company, all the things Chanan pointed out are really a bear. But if you look at some of the smaller and mid-sized vendors, the thing I like to look at, and I mentioned this to you guys last week, what I really like to look at is wallet share and mind share, right? Because if you have mind share and you have some wallet share, and I know it's a little, subjective to follow that, but everything Chanan pointed out is now available to you. You can get it. But if the partners aren't at least on board with you, psychologically, mentally, they're moving along with you, it doesn't matter how many deal regs they put in your system, right? The quality of them is going to be bad. It doesn't matter how much they're using your PRM platform. You've got to have some mind share. Now, measuring that, well, I'll leave that.
That's the rub right there, Sal, because I mean, wallet share you can calculate, you can look at the data, but mind share, we're always being asked by companies, can you measure our partner engagement? Can you compare our engagement against average people on your platform? Or can you look at the top 10 and tell us what they're doing that we're not, right? This whole mind share thing is really important. So if you're thinking about data and you've just got focused on transactional data, there's another level of data out there. It's what your partner's doing in your program. What's that digital body language? Are they taking courses? Are they advancing? Are they firing off their first campaign? Because those are going to be the leading indicators to future performance.
Okay, and I've got another really good question coming through. And the question is about recency. With the fact that everything is changing at the moment, at what point do you feel the data becomes useless? It's too old.
I would venture to say that in most cases, I think, again, you have to look at the different slices of the data because you can't treat them all the same. So when you're looking at the leading indicators that Laz just spoke about, are they engaging in training and certification, and are they taking the right actions? Are they following through on the marketing efforts? You have to have a longer lead time, for these things, because it's never from one day to the next or from 1 week to the next. You can't measure it quarterly or maybe even monthly. But there are data sets where you can get insights on a daily or even more likely weekly basis, which is the actual sale information. And the reason you do want to do that is that is really keeping your finger on the pulse of the business, because there are leading indicators. I invested in marketing. It's going to take a while to see the outcome. I'm investing in rebate programs or MDF programs. There's a first of all, you need to establish the correlation between the two, but it's going to take a while to see the outcome. Whereas POS is just the run rate of the business. It's what are they selling right now? And getting the visibility into that on a weekly basis is incredibly important, because you may have another vendor who is getting more mind share from your channel. However they're doing it, it could be a million things that they're doing that is driving that. And the POS can give you that indication sooner rather than later. Or they might be having a challenge selling into a certain segment of the market or with a certain product family. But getting those insights from the POS in close to real time allows you to act. It allows you to investigate, well, why are they challenged? Why am I seeing a trend change, compared to past performance that may require more enablement, more training, more incentives, maybe price changes are needed. There's a million things that could be needed to resolve the problem, and getting that pulse, at least on a weekly basis, and I've seen companies in some cases do it even on a daily basis, is important. I think that other leading indicators can maybe have a longer lag time.
Well, it depends on the sales cycle on this, right? When we run into, you guys know people, we're in the incentive world, right? They run incentives and they look at they try to correlate MDF to sales. And if you have a long sales cycle, by the way, you should have your pulse on that all the time, I agree. But I think you should be looking backwards or ahead so much harder in terms of, where is this at the top of the funnel? And we run programs or see programs run all the time, and it's harder to get. And I think this is a commitment in an organization that takes time to invest in good MDF, to invest in good incentives. Running an incentive just because your competitors are doing it doesn't make a lot of sense. But how are you enabling them? How are you building that pipeline at the top? Takes time. And I think we're getting better. I don't know, Laz and Sal, if you see this, but we're getting better at documenting. This is why we need the data, right? Because we have to sell this to a C-suite. By the way, everything I'm seeing is budgets are going to shrink in 2021, right? And if we're not talking already about what the ROI is going to look like and be taking that, the ROI of our partners and us, right? If we're not taking that now to build that in already, I think, you know, I think we're just going to be a losing battle, because these things are hard, right? When you're looking at contribution, commitment, capability, and coverage, and you're really defining the partner path to sales, the problem is, you guys tell me, it's a lot of work. That's just not a POS feed, right? You have to dig in and understand and have a relationship and dig into your partners that way.
Okay, I've got a bunch of questions coming in, so let's see if we can cover some of these. One of the questions I've got is, what's the role of machine learning and AI, and how can they help us automate the process? Laz, you're nodding there. Do you want to come in on this one?
Yeah, so Chanan actually talked about a spectrum, right, that has leading and lagging indicators. And sometimes if you look at what was sold, you can backtrack and start thinking about what caused that to happen. Well, AI turns that on its head, right? It basically says, these two activities have taken place. In the ecosystem of transactions and partners that I have, who else started with these two activities, and what was the third activity that then caused the buyer to raise his hand and possibly purchase something? So that predictiveness, that ability to say who's got the propensity to do something here by comparing it to what's happened in the past and what's likely to happen, is really where this gets mind-blowing, because now you could look at all of this data and start saying, hey, I've got a potential partner. What can I do that others have done to actually get them to that point of success? So that's where really AI, where we're really starting to, you know, place our bets, is really using it for propensity modeling and going in that direction with it.
Sal, you're nodding on that one. Do you want to come in on that?
Well, you know, again, as most folks on the call have realized, I mean, Laz and I are effectively in the same business, and we're doing the same exact thing. I mean, for us, it's all about, and you know, to those of you out there on the call who are probably scratching your heads here, I know a lot of folks are like, yeah, machine learning, you know, AI, robotic process automation. We're hearing it all, and they're just buzzwords. And I will tell you, 80% of the time, when you go to folks' websites or you have a sales rep come in, they are buzzwords. I mean, and I think that's a fair, you know, assumption. But there are companies that are using it effectively. And if they're using it to do things like trend analysis, predictive analysis, and they can demonstrate to you when someone walks in your door, Mr. Vendor, you know, like let's say Laz, right? Laz walks in, you challenge him to get behind the BS and really show what are the results of this, because it sounds great, right? But the truth is, it's like cryptocurrency. 9 out of 10 people at a cocktail party don't know what the hell they're talking about, right? So challenge the people coming in to show you why this is going to be good to you, right? Look at your business model. Don't just jump on it because it's a buzzword, right? Really understand what the benefit is. And if you determine that it's too early in your cycle, or the benefit's not there, or you can't make the investment to really leverage this tech the way you need to, it's okay to hold off on it, right? There's no underlying pressure here that you have to move with it, right? So, you know, that's
I don't know. Wait, can we disagree? Can we have our first disagreement?
We always did, Steve.
Sal and I disagree on everything. I was like, if you're not doing it, somebody else is. And look, here's the deal. I think you can start simple. Look, create a scatter plot, right? AI is, you're right, such a big word, but it can be really simple. So you create a scatter plot and identify your partners from hell and your rising stars and your great people. You got to visualize it, right? And you got to dumb, I'm going to say maybe this, Sal, you got to dumb it down and start simple. And how does it work? I think the tools are there in the simplest level for everybody to get involved in basic data analytics and visualization and predictability. Is it perfect? Is it going to be, I don't know, Laz, what the plus or minus is on that when you're talking about that predictability in AI. It's surely getting better. And I think the big piece, and this goes to everything we're talking about, is when you're doing this, you better be able to pull in data sources from everywhere, right? And you need to be able to turn them on and off, and you need to do it really, really simple. I think, Sal, you told me if you can't get a data analyst, I'm reading your notes, get an MDA, right? And figure out how to do it simple. Because I think if you're not doing it, you're going to miss the boat.
Well, an MDA, again, for those of you who aren't familiar with every acronym because they change, it's a market data analyst or a marketing data analyst. And I'll tell you, you can pick these folks up, you know, a year or two or three out of school. with a statistics or a finance degree, and you can pick them up for, you know, under 100K. You don't need a data scientist all the time. I mean, Steve is hugely successful and can afford to do all of that, right? Not like those of us who have a budget. Steve has unlimited budget, as we all know. But all kidding aside, you really can get these folks at a reasonable rate, and the difference they will make in your business, particularly on the sales and marketing side, is mind-blowing. I've been there. It is mind-blowing.
Right, you were talking like a sales leader. When they first sign up somebody to run sales ops for them, they realize the difference that it could make.
Yes.
You know, the one thing we have to realize also is that this is the channel, guys. You know, this is the redheaded stepchild of the organization, and a lot of times they're not going to get the funds to get that data scientist. So it's back on us to create interfaces and experiences that could bring that data in a meaningful way to the partner or to the supplier when they need it. And I think that's the real challenge. Make it so easy and so smart that they'll use it.
Okay, and I got another great question coming in, and that ties into you know, advanced data. And have you got any of your customers that are integrating things like customer sentiment, etc., which I've seen used extensively in things like cosmetics? And if so, what are they doing?
Steve, I'm actually gonna throw this one at you.
Okay,
because
when I spoke,
when I spoke at your Toronto conference, we talked about this, and you know, I put up some examples of companies, you know, like what Nike's doing is remarkable, and the big makeup store, who's right now I'm drawing a blank. Apologize for that, at the malls. Yeah, but they're doing it right. So Sephora. So Steve, you have really good insight on this.
Yeah, look, we're in the B2C space, right? And I think it's fascinating. I think we're going to end up doing a conversation later about what B2B is learning from B2C and B2C is learning from B2B. But in the B2C space, Rod, what you're talking about, it's imperative, right? Net promoter scores, right, are huge in understanding the value, and whether you call it customer sentiment, customer satisfaction. And it's been fascinating for us to watch this, right? Because we may work with someone like Whirlpool who has 200,000 end users, and we're running a consumer rebates program. And we're learning all of that about what gets done from a consumer's perspective and how important that experience is. And then when you move over to B2B, I think B2B is realizing that, by the way, our partners are consumers. And by the way, they're acting like consumers, and they're being empowered to act like consumers. So that data on their net promoter score, the whole CX to PX, their partner experience. I don't know where Laz, Sal, or Chanan, you guys said it, but you know, you can do all this sort of stuff. But if you're not following that customer experience through their buyer's journey and mapping their buyer's journey, because they're a consumer, you're really going to miss those boat. And I'm super excited to see organizations having that across all touch points. How do we take that CX to PX sort of thing, right? So sorry, long answer, but I think it's incredibly important. It's going to become more important.
Okay. And I've got another question coming through here. I've got bunches of questions coming through, actually. And that is, what do you think are the most important data points from a partner perspective? And Laz, maybe I can throw that one at you.
Well, I mean, I think this would be in the top 3 of any one of our answers, and partners want to know about the business they're doing with their supplier, right? They want to know about leads, they want to know about opportunities just as much as the supplier wants. I would say that first and foremost, it's about the opportunities and the leads. But the problem is that if you take a sales funnel and you start thinking about where that lead is originated, and when it closes, there's various steps in between. And if you look at where data is kept along that path, some of it is kept in the marketing, some of it is kept in the learning, some of it is kept in the deal reg, and then some of it is kept back in the Salesforce that the company uses for corporate, right? So it makes it really hard to manage that lead funnel. So if I had to say, you know, put on your binoculars and stare in one direction, it would be at that funnel and trying to make sure that you could track the data that flows from the top to the bottom.
I think, Laz, doesn't this go to really providing a 360, degree insight, like dashboards, control panels, like we do, right? Again, to jump back on the PRM wagon, right? We both know this, giving the vendor the ability to sit and look at all of these issues Laz just mentioned, you know, in a single pane of glass. Now, are we completely there? I mean, you know, we're still working on it. Are we mostly there? We are. And I think we, you know, if, again, whoever you go with on a PRM side, pulling the data from these disparate sources and trying to bring them together in a single pane of glass so you as the vendor, as well as the partner, can see where they are in these things is critical. And you know what? If you're a vendor out there and you're saying to yourself, well, heck, we can build this, let me tell you something. Reinventing the wheel at this stage of the technology, you know, saga is not the best idea. So I do think, to Laz's point, you know, we both have spent a lot of money, research, and R&D, you know, in developing, you know, pieces like that. And Steve, I think you've got something similar on the incentive side. Hanan, I don't want to speak for you. You know, by all means, jump in. But I think that single pane is big.
Yeah, I'd like to sort of build on what Laz just said about the funnel and the leads and the opportunities. I think that the vendors are in, and this will be important for the partners, you'll soon see, the vendors are in a unique position where they get to see the aggregate data across all of their channels. And that allows them to get insights, especially if you take, for example, today's market and subsegments of the market are more impacted by COVID than others. That insight allows them to convert those insights into insights they're sharing with their partners, telling the partners it's these product families or it's this subset of a customer base you really want to focus on because that's where you're going to find the most lucrative deals right now. And if you can now show them that by giving them that feedback, guiding the leads, aligning with those insights, and aligning the incentive programs with those insights, you're driving them to where they make money. And if you can expose to them, A, the insight, and then how that is translating over time into them making more money, you know, literally converting it into more business, that's when I think you're capturing their mindset. They really view you as a valuable, you the vendor, as a valuable partner to help drive their business. And to Sal's point, that yes, definitely on incentives, Model N aggregates all of the data points, whether it's getting paid on price protection, getting paid on SPA debits, credit claims, MDFs, rebates, into a single portal view where they can actually see that whole side of their relationship with the vendor in one location, which we definitely do.
Well, you said show, and I think that's a big piece, and sometimes we miss that. Look, partners care about where's my money, where's my lead, and what can I do to make more money? And I think our battle is trying to show them the things that they can do to get there, because once again, they care about where's my money, where's the lead, and can I get my money? And by the way, you owe me money, and when's it going to come? I'm just telling you, this is what you can build a portal, and that's really the two things that every partner is going to agree on. The question is, and I run into a lot of people, look, we have to two-partner marketing, and I think we miss this sometimes. Where's the validation? And Hanan, you said show them. So show them the trail, show them the effort, get them to buy into, you know, the top of the funnel activities. And if we think we can just tell them about it and it's going to happen, I think a lot of them fall by the wayside. I think we have to prove it to them and show them the ROI. By the way, in running a free video on enablement, I'm sorry, it's not free. Sorry, that's an opportunity cost. The partner could be doing something else. So it's really great that you're giving it away for free, but it's not free. And you've got to build validation to anything beyond those top couple of pieces.
And Steve, let's drill down into that. Show them. Show them precisely what. So what kind of information in what way?
Well, look, I think, so here's my take on partners. Look, they'll answer any question you ask if they know what's in it for them. They'll do what you're asked if they know what's in it for them. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people ask 20 questions when 5 would have done the deal, and the partners would have responded, and then everything else gets layered in. I think the message has to be simple and clear and show real concrete results. Like if you do this, we're all talking about enablement, right? It's what everybody's talking about that's going to drive the data points, that's going to drive sales. But if you can't clearly, Rod, show them the step-through process, and I think a lot of times people go all in. And Sal, I don't know if you've seen this, or Lads, you've seen this, or Hanan, where, you know, everybody wants scale and they want to throw everything in, and they stop doing the trials to get the ROI, to build the justification, to do better two-partner marketing. Once again, I think that's more work. And look, you guys have seen multi-billion dollar organizations where you've gone and talked to them and said, look, let's run this little program. and it'll be great, and it'll be a trial. And then everybody else piles on, and it becomes a multi-million-dollar opportunity. It takes you a year to roll out, and you hardly get anything done. Look, I think Rod, we need to concretely find out use cases that are successful and market that and drive behavior that way. And it's just modifying behavior.
If I can share one specific use case, going back to the point I said about aggregating the information, if you can share with your partner, here is how we as a company are performing across all of our channels. So we're not giving you specific information about which channel's doing what, but an aggregate information about which product lines are selling now, which regions are doing better, which end markets are doing better. That is valuable insight that the channel cannot get by themselves. And if you then show them, and because of this data, we're now doing a marketing campaign that's going to be focusing on that successful market segment, and you will get a better rebate payout or MDF funds to go after that market. You have now created an insight that is followed through with actions that are helping them. And that is an example of what, Rod, to your question, that's what you can show them.
Hey, Rod, let me add one to that, because I think Chanan is onto something. It's really giving them something tangible that they can look at and have them take that next step, right? We had a customer that was really concerned about just the overall picture of their ability to generate demand, everything from creating sales, following up on leads, generating the right content. So, we started creating some BI tools in the platform where they can go in there and start looking at these different parts of their channel program. You know what was really interesting? Aside from when we got through what our partner's doing, we got to the point where we started saying, well, how are they performing? And the first thing we started doing was showing them word clouds. So here are the topics that your leads are most interested in. And so we would show them a word cloud, and what we would find is that, we would go through this content on our platform and then be able to say, unified communications and security are the things that are driving the most interest in your buyer base. And then they would go down, and then we would tell them something about their content. We would say, here's the content that you're building. Here's the aging of this content. So you could see that the content that's creating the most leads is this new content that you have over here. This old content back here, everybody's exposed to it, but it's doing nothing for you. So you should just stop that and focus more on these kinds of things. So I think there's this peeling the onion kind of thing that you can do with them to show them, cause and effect. And I guess that's the point you were making, Chanan, that, it's not just show them the data, but show them what the data is doing for you that drives it.
Okay. And we've got 10 minutes left, and we talked about in the briefing a lightning moment. So 2 really cool ideas that are very easy for the audience to implement. And Chanan, maybe I can start with you. 2 suggestions, things that people really should be doing.
The one thing I think is, and sort of building on what Laz just said, is to figure out what you can do in the short term to help your partner specifically align with where they can be successful today. We're still faced with a difficult environment. We're expecting a challenging year ahead of us. So this advice is relevant for now, and it's relevant for 12 months from now. And make your programs more specific than perhaps they used to be. If you identify that there is, and I'm just going to give a very specific example here, if you identify that right now you are getting more traction in end customers that are greater than 500 million in revenue, okay, it is very easy to align both your MDF programs and your rebates to make it more beneficial, a bigger rebate payout or more marketing funds available for the channels to specifically go after that market segment. And you achieve 2 things by doing that. One is you're now focusing them on where they're going to be successful because you had the insight across all of your channels. You're now driving them in that direction. So making the program very, very specific will help them. And ultimately, it will obviously help you because if they're successful, you're seeing more sales, right? So I think that is, one really important thing. And because they get that from you, you get more mind share from them. So that is one thing I think that you should, or everybody should be looking into. And then the second thing, going back to the survey, the poll that you did at the beginning of today's session, if 80% of you are aware of the fact that you are challenged to get second tier channel data, or your data is just not complete enough or not frequent enough, start looking at solutions and realize that it's not just within your four walls where you can go and build the Excel spreadsheet or put the EDI feed in place and have your IT team try and figure it out, because all you're going to do is get the value of what you're doing alone against your channels. Solutions that are available out there, Model N is one of them, allow you to benefit from the crowdsourcing and scalability that you cannot get alone. So if you want to get insights from your partners into your customers, and the information you're getting from one channel specifically is incomplete about that end customer, a true scalable service is collecting this data from thousands of different channels, not all of them working with you, some of them working with your competitors, and can enrich the information beyond the baseline data you can get alone from your channel. So you could get crowdsourcing information from different partners, even the ones you're not working with, by subscribing to services that focus on this. So there are ways to overcome the second tier problem, and overcoming the specificity and the granularity of the data about your end customers by looking outside the four walls of the company. And Model N will be happy to have a conversation about that.
Laz, two really cool ideas from you.
All right, easy. One's really easy is, you have to realize what you don't know, right? And to Sal's point earlier about understanding the share of wallet for a partner, how many of you actually know what other companies your partners partner with, right? A lot of them don't know that. So make sure your registration forms have that. Ask them, what are the top 3 suppliers that you work with? That'll give you an idea what your total addressable market is through that partner, right? And that's an easy thing to do. It should be part of your ideal partner profile, not a big change. The other thing is, it's not so easy. It's, right now, suppliers need to stand up and help those partners transform digitally. We're in a different world right now, and the tools we're using here for this webinar are the same tools that partners need to do to create their own webinars, create their own demand, and they can't do this on their own. So teach sales how to do social selling, teach marketing how to run multi-touch campaigns. This is really important right now, right? If you want the lifeblood of your business to flow through the channel, you got to do this.
Okay, Sal.
Well, first of all, these guys stole my 4 ideas, so I have to come up with 2 new ones. Happens every time we're together, guys. The first thing I would say is, I always say this to you, Rod. I say, having been a business partner for 20 years and then moving into Fortune 500 and, playing the game I played, I think I've got pretty good insight here. And I would tell you, open dialogue with your partners is so critical, to the extent you can. I mean, I know coverage can be tight if you're a large organization, but share all the data you have. I love the idea of going out to a third party and bringing them in if you need help getting to your data. I think that's brilliant, right? It's a great investment. But whatever you've got, share it, give it out. Don't hold it back. Even if you're not entirely sure how apropos it is to that partner or to that market, just give them data, right? These are smart people, right? They're as smart as us, if not smarter. There's no dividing line anymore between vendor and partner, right? Look at our industry. We work for them. They work for us. We know this person. They know us. I mean, it's an incestuous industry as big as we think we are, right? Share everything you've got. The second thing I would say is, don't be afraid, and I've been on stage saying this, I've gotten my tail kicked a couple of times, but I'm going to keep saying it, and I said it at Lenovo. Don't be afraid to force your partner to do some lifting, okay? We still have a tendency, and I love this word, we have a tendency to coddle our partners. Guess what? As a vendor, nobody's coddling us, okay? And we're all grown adults, we're all running businesses, right? We all are supposed to know what we're doing. We've got to stop sometimes kowtowing, right? Force them to do a little lifting, because here's the old thing you say in sales, right? If you can't get them to do a little bit of work here, you're never going to get them to make a decision to invest in your product or your services and to stick with you. You've got to be willing to push a little bit harder than you do. And you know what? The ones who don't respond, who just, say, you know, to heck with you, I'm going to go over here. You probably weren't going to get them as customers anyway. They weren't going to be part of your ecosystem. So, you know, don't be afraid. If you're going to lose fast.
Excellent. And Steve, last but by no means least.
Okay, since I'm going last, I'm going to do 3 things instead of 2 because I can, since I'm going last, right? Hey, the first one is near term. Pay your partners. Pay your partners timely. We're talking about all this strategy. Look, the cash flow is huge. India's global best practices is to have a check wire back in someone's hand in less than 21 days. The leading vendors are doing it in less than 14. Pay your partners. And if you're in co-op and it's their money and they're worried about investing now because you're paying 75%, but you've got guidelines and no pre-approvals and it's kind of iffy, let them know they're going to get paid. They're trying to drive businesses. After that, beg, borrow, steal, find a data scientist, make one up, find a way to get that data analysis and make that happen. And thirdly, take everybody on here and integrate this stuff, right? IT team, I know you can't do that really fast. It has to be a goal. All the data means nothing if you can't pull it together. If you're operating silos and you stay that way, everything we just said is not going to change anything in your world. So those are my 3.
Excellent. So Laz, Sal, Chanan, Steve, great job. Lots of very, very cool insights. We're out of time. I have got a number of questions that we haven't been able to get to, and our panelists have promised to answer those questions so that we can post them in a timely manner, i.e. by the end of tomorrow. So they'll come back to us with their answers. And I think they've delivered some great insights. But I'd also like to thank the people on the call who I think have come up with some very, very cool questions to deliver really interesting answers to some of the issues that we're challenged with today. So thank you all very, very much indeed. As we close, you'll see a survey. Please do complete that survey, and everyone who completes the survey will be entered into a draw to receive a $100 Amazon card. So finally, Laz, Sal, Chanan, Stephen, thank you so very, very much.
Thanks, you, Rod.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. Bye, everyone.